Hello friends, this video on human reproduction part 21 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So with this we have reached towards the end of this lesson, and here we have discussed all minute details about the human reproduction. We saw how sexual reproduction takes place starting from the formation of the male and female sex cells. We then saw how the zygote is formed, how the embryo development takes place, how a child is born, and we almost covered everything. So now it is time to look at some of the questions just to check if you got the things right or not. So let us look at question number 1. Fill in the blanks. Humans reproduce dash. Asexually or sexually. Now, as I already mentioned, sexual reproduction is the only mode of reproduction in human beings. So it is obviously sexually. Humans are oviparous, viviparous, ovoviviparous. What is the meaning of oviparous? Those animals which lay eggs. Viviparous, those animals which directly give birth to young ones. Ovoviviparous, those animals which can lay eggs, they can also give birth to young ones. Now, that's very obvious. It is viviparous because human beings don't lay eggs. Fertilization is dash in human beings, external or internal. Yes, of course it is internal because the fusion between the sperm and the egg takes place inside the female's body. It happens inside the fallopian tube of the female reproductive system. So it is definitely internal. Male and female gametes are haploid or diploid. They are haploid. Now all other cells of the human body, that is all the somatic cells, are diploid except the sex cells, and they are haploid. So when these two fuse together, they form a diploid zygote. Zygote is diploid or haploid. Just now I was talking about this. So when the male and female gametes fuse, they will form diploid zygote. The process of release of ovum from a mature follicle is called ovulation. So ovum is nothing but the egg. Mature phallic follicle is nothing but the Graafian follicle. And the Graafian follicle is present where? So this process of release of ovum from the ovary is known as ovulation. Ovulation is induced by a hormone called, so you remember, there is a hormone when its level reaches its peak, only then the Graafian follicle ruptures and the egg is released. So what is that hormone? Yes, it is the LH, that is the luteinizing hormone. Fusion of male and female gametes is called fertilization. So that is what we have been studying for so long, that the fusion is called fertilization. Fertilization takes place in, where does it take place? It takes place inside the female body, of course. Where in the female body? It takes place in the fallopian tube. Where exactly in the fallopian tube? In the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. Zygote divides to form dash, which is implanted in uterus. So zygote initially divides to form the blastomeres, then it forms the morula, and finally it forms blastocyst, and the blastocyst gets implanted in the uterus. So it will be blastocyst. The structure which provides vascular connection between fetus and uterus is called fetus and uterus. Uterus is a part of the mother's body. So basically the connection between fetus and mother is called placenta. Let us look at next question. Write two major functions each of testis and ovary. Now as we saw, testis is the primary sex organ in males and ovary is the primary sex organ in females. So it is very obvious that the basic function of testis is to produce the male sex cells, that is to produce sperms, and not only sperms, it also produces the male hormone testosterone, and it is specific enough. Sperms are produced in the seminiferous tubules, and testosterone is produced by the Leydig cells, and the Leydig cells are the interstitial cells, and sperms are produced by the seminiferous tubules. And similarly, functions of ovary, the basic function would be to produce egg, obviously, and it also produces hormones like progesterone and estrogen. Now, progesterone is specifically produced by the corpus luteum after ovulation, and estrogen is also produced by the ovary. So, and these hormones, whether you talk about testosterone or progesterone and estrogen, they regulate the secondary sexual characters in both males and females. For example, in females, there is development of breasts and the appearance of hair in the genital area, etc. Question number 3. Name the hormones involved in regulation of spermatogenesis. So what are the hormones which actually regulate the process of sperm formation? Now, there are quite a few hormones which are involved in this process, but the main control is with the hypothalamus. It releases gonadotropin releasing hormone, that is GnRH, and when this hormone is released, it initiates or it stimulates anterior pituitary to release hormones like LH and FSH. So, LH and FSH are other hormones which are involved in the regulation of spermatogenesis. How? The LH hormone is, this hormone will act on the Leydig cells, and the Leydig cells are the interstitial cells which synthesize and secrete androgens. And androgens are those which control the male sexual characters, and it also stimulates the process of spermatogenesis. So, more LH being produced, more spermatogenesis is encouraged. Similarly, FSH, if produced, it acts on the Sertoli cells, the cells which provide nutrition to the male germ cells, and they also form the inner lining of the seminiferous tubules. So, this stimulates spermiogenesis. What is spermiogenesis? The process by which the spermatids get transformed into sperms. So, basically, spermatogenesis and spermiogenesis, everything is encouraged due to these hormones. So, LH and FSH are the hormones which play a very important role in regulating the process of spermatogenesis, and these two hormones in turn are controlled by the gonadotropin releasing hormone of hypothalamus. Let us look at question number 4. Define spermiogenesis and spermiation. Now, both these processes are part of spermatogenesis, but it is just that they are the names given to two different steps of the same process. So when we talk about the spermiogenesis, it is basically the transformation of the spermatids into sperms. The step which takes place after the spermatids have been formed and they get converted into sperms, whereas spermiation is that process where the mature sperms which are being formed that get released from the Sertoli cells into the lumen of seminiferous tubules. So that means in the seminiferous tubules, these spermiogenesis actually take place. It starts from the male germ cells, and finally the sperms are released from the Sertoli cells. So this release is spermiation, and the transformation of spermatids to sperms is spermiogenesis. Question number 5. What are the major components of the seminal plasma? Now, as I mentioned before, as the sperms move through the entire male reproductive system, a lot of components get added to the tube, to the duct which contains the sperms. So the major components are spermatozoa, which are the sperms, mucus, secretions from the accessory ducts. For example, there are glands like the prostate gland, seminal vesicles, bulbourethral gland, and all of them put their secretions into the ducts. So all these things get mixed up together and they form the seminal plasma, and it is very much rich in substances like fructose, calcium, and some of the enzymes. So all these things together form seminal plasma. Question number 6. What are the major functions of the male accessory ducts and glands? So if you talk about the reproductive glands, their main purpose is to give some secretions, and those secretions help the sperms to move. So it actually it makes the mobility of sperms easier. And what about the male accessory ducts? These ducts also help in the transportation of the sperms. So what are the male accessory ducts present in the human male reproductive system? So they are the retitestis, vasa efferentia, epididymis, and vas deferens. So if you see, it all starts from inside the testis. Retitestis and vasa deferentia are present inside the testis. Then they come out and join epididymis, which in turn joins the vas deferens. Now these ducts help in storage and transport of sperms. So when I say storage, this is just temporary storage. Similarly, if you talk about the male accessory glands, prostate, seminal vesicle and Cowper's gland. So this is the seminal vesicle, prostate and Cowper's gland. All these glands, they give their secretions, and those secretions make the fluid all the more easier to move, and as a result it helps in the transportation of sperms easier. And also these fluids help to lubricate the penis and the vagina so that the process of sexual intercourse becomes easier. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.